What's up, guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. I'm gonna try to talk while I keep playing Carol of the Glens here. It's day 8 of the 12 Drams of Christmas. All right, we're gonna stop that now. I can't keep that up. Day 8 of the 12 Drams of Christmas today. Gotta bring some music back. I don't have a cool look for today's episode. I don't have my transformation continuing into, well, you'll see what it's continuing into at the end of this series, but I'm filming this literally at 2 in the morning because I can't keep up with this. Like doing 12 days of this in a row has not gone to plan. So next year, if I do this again, I'm gonna definitely film it like a couple weeks in advance so that I'm not, days behind and trying to do this at 2 in the morning. But it is, 2 in the morning right now. I have to turn my air off so that it's not super loud in this room. And it gets freezing because it's starting to get really cold here in Ohio again. So we're bundled up a little bit tonight. Anyways, day 8. Let's get a blind sample. You guys know how this works. If you don't, you're a little late to the party, and that's okay, because I don't know if it's a party that you really want to be at this point. So let's see what we've got today. We've got Mystery Sample 4 from Mr. Mike C. So let's get this poured out. Very much a kind of amber, like little lighter amber color going on with this whiskey. So, it could be a lot of different things. All right, I think we're in American whiskey territory here. So let me slide the Carol of the Glens, Glencairns, up a little bit. Let's make some room here on the table for this review. Let's see what Mike's got in store for us. As always, you guys are gonna find out along the bottom of the screen what I'm sipping and smelling before I know at the end. I'll find out of this reveal card. So let's see and make a few guesses and blindly review whatever is in my glass. Here we go, cheers. All right, so it's not obvious to me right away, like what I'm dealing with here in the glass. It's a whiskey that's feeling a little bit on the brighter side, and that tracks with the color. It's got this very distinct menthol character to it. It's kind of crawling up my nose a little bit, but I also feel like I'm smelling some distinct corniness to the whiskey, and it's not necessarily in a super young way by any means. I'm trying to place what exactly it is. Like, is it a Canadian whiskey? Because oftentimes Canadian whiskeys will have some sensation like this, where you can get the grain, but you also get the woodiness, and they feel like they're kind of two separate things. Because a lot of times in the case of like a Found North, when they're blending stuff together, finishing it in all these barrels, everything feels a little bit pulled apart in the final product. So I get a little bit of that here, but at the same time, it feels maybe more overtly American in some ways. I'm getting almost like a skunky smell on the nose. I don't exactly know how to put it. It's somewhat vegetal and kind of like earthy, and like you're walking through a field a little bit. So this is an interesting whiskey. I'm not sure exactly what I'm dealing with. It feels like it's gonna be kind of a higher proof, like maybe in the 130s, but who knows? Let's just go to the palate. I'll come back to the nose. Cheers. Wow, that will wake you up. Heartburn immediately. That's gotta be high proof. And you know what? I never really look on the glass, like to look at the legs or whatever. I just, that's such a meaningless data point 95% of the time for me when I'm smelling and tasting a whiskey. However, in my moment of pain here, as I was looking down, it did catch my eye that this glass, or the whiskey on the glass, looks very thick, very, very slow tears dripping down the side of the glass. And so I have no clue what's going on with this whiskey. It feels like a hazmat product. And I've been filming already tonight, and I'm probably gonna continue filming after this, although this might completely blow my palate. I feel like I'm primed for proof, and this still hit me really, really, really hard. So I still don't have any good guesses. Like, the age of this could be all over the place, because it could be a whiskey that's been aging in used barrels, which is kind of the feeling that I'm getting from it in some ways. And so it could be like a 15-year product, and it's drinking more like a 7-year, let's be generous, 8, 9-ish at most year hazmat American whiskey. So I don't exactly know. Profile-wise, is this my profile? First sip, first nose says no. However, I think I should do a second sip and see if, maybe the proof is gonna be tamer on this second sip, and I can deal with it without my eyes watering. So here we go again. So second sip is a total 180 from the first sip for me. This is interesting. I'm picking up something that feels like a port finish on here that I did not at all notice up front because of the proof, because of just the intensity. Yeah, I'm starting to get this, like, well, I guess it could be Madeira, it could be sherry, but For me, port is the thing that came to mind right away. Maybe it's not like entirely port finish, maybe it's like a barrel of port finish blended in, or maybe it's a reused port barrel, you know, second fill, third fill, something. But at the end of the day, I do get some extra fruitiness that feels like it's been pasted onto this whiskey. I'm thinking, could it be an American single malt that's been finished in a certain cask? It doesn't really drink like an American single malt, except for that vegetal quality, which is interesting, but it doesn't have the chocolatey notes. Could it be a Canadian whiskey? Like I mentioned earlier, could this be like a Found North pick or a Found North batch? Maybe, you know, I could see that being the case. Is this Scotch or Irish or something like that would maybe be more typically port finished? I don't think so. So I think I actually need to do one final sip before I lock in some guesses. And also, this last sip is gonna be good for me because I hated it and then I loved it. So I'm just not sure where I fall on this. All right, so I probably just made a really hard cut in the video, but I've been sitting here for the last 5 or 6 minutes just like continually smelling this. I had a couple more, you know, very small sips because I'm probably gonna be hammered after this video. Trying to film something after whatever this is at this proof point is gonna be very, very tough. But I've come to the conclusion that I think this might be an American single malt. I am starting to pick up a chocolate note, and that chocolate note can come from port finishes, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like it's coming from the port finish here. I think that skunky thing I found and that vegetal thing I said on the nose up front, I think those things track with port and American single malt. So let me explain. Sometimes port finish, sherry finish, other wine finishes can get a sulfur note. Sometimes the sulfur note is less prevalent and it becomes more skunky, more of like a almost over concentrated note where it gets so concentrated down into the whiskey that it feels bitter, like more bitter than sweet. And so then I would call that kind of skunky a little bit, right? And then there's the vegetal note. The vegetal note doesn't, to me, seem obvious that it would come from a port finish. That feels like a vegetal note is gonna come from the base whiskey. And so base whiskeys often, or American single malts often as a base whiskey could provide that vegetal note because sometimes American single malts just have that terroir, you know, vegetal quality to them. Sometimes it even smells and tastes like marijuana. Sometimes it's more like broccoli. It just depends on the whiskey. So for me, I feel like now that I'm starting to pick up chocolate on the palate, that this is probably chocolate and vegetal coming from an American single malt base with the skunky and now these port fruits that are really clinging to my palate on the finish. That's coming from the port finish. So I'm gonna say this is a 143 proof because I think it's high. And I'm gonna try to figure out age. I'm gonna say it's probably 8 years. It's maybe 8 or 9. Let's go with 8 years old, port finished, American single malt, distillery. No idea on distillery. I'm trying to think of, like Mike is in New Jersey, and so I'm trying to think of companies around there. I think Old Line is one. I think Mackenzie, is it Mackenzie maybe is a distillery around there, and I'm not sure if they do single malt or if they just do like wheat with like wheated bourbons and other things I feel like I've seen from them, but I have seen hazmat proofs, I feel like, from that distillery. I'm gonna say it's Old Line, and I'm gonna say, you know, all the stats that I said. I don't have a bottle guess. So 143 proof, 8-year American single malt port finish, Old Line. And give me a second, I'm gonna find Mike's reveal card, but this is a hell of a tricky pour here. All right, so we got the reveal card. These guesses are kind of crazy, but I have faith. I have faith right now. Let's see how I did. If it's Canadian or bourbon, I won't be that upset. Maybe if it's MGP bourbon, I could see that too. What? No way. Okay, so, oh wow. All right, so this is Copper and Cask small batch. It's batch 4. 13-year Kentucky whiskey finished in Armagnac casks. 13-year Kentucky whiskey. It says whiskey. Is it bourbon? Is it Bourye? If it just says whiskey and it doesn't say rye or bourbon, you know, you will have seen it across the bottom of the screen, and I'll update that with whatever information I had after this video. 13-year Kentucky whiskey finished in Armagnac. So the Armagnac, it's not port, but it is Armagnac. I'll take that. I did get the finished aspect with the wrong finish, but it's close. But the proof is what's blowing my mind. It says 115.8. Is that a typo? I'm gonna make a cut here. I'm gonna look this up and I'll be right back. So I've got some more information now about this whiskey, and it's gonna require a little longer debrief at the end of this video because this is interesting and there are some crazy aspects to this. So I apologize if it makes the video just a little bit longer than normal, but The reason this is called a Kentucky whiskey, and that was correct on the reveal card here, is because it says, like a bourbon, the whiskey does have over 51% corn in the mash bill, but it was not aged entirely in new charred oak barrels. So it says the presence of less new oak allowed the whiskey to mature gracefully without a heavy charred oak presence. So remember back, earlier in this video when I said that this felt Canadian, it felt like maybe it was in used barrels. This tracks, and that's why the color's lighter. All of these things are coming together now. It doesn't say if every barrel was used, like a used barrel, or if only some of them, and some of them were new charred, or if it was moved from new charred oak to used. No clue on that. It's not specific on their website, but it says it was batched at 12 years old and then finished for over a year in Armagnac casks. So all of that tracks. Now, as far as proof goes, this is actually 131.6. The reveal here, I love you, Sarah, but her handwriting looked like 115.8. It's actually 65.8, and that's ABV. So multiply by 2, and then you get the proof. It does still have sweetness to it, and I have a theory as to where this whiskey could be from, although I totally couldn't prove it. There's no mash bill stated, in this information, but there's a little nuttiness to this. And I feel like it could be coming from Heaven Hill. Like maybe this is corn whiskey from Heaven Hill or something like that. I really don't know. That's purely speculative. But the coolest part about this whiskey, besides the fact that it morphed from being not good for me to, whoa, this is like kind of unique and cool and crazy. Besides that, the coolest part about this is $65. $65. And I would put this up against any Found North batch that people are overpaying for. Put this up against your Found Norths. Put this up against, I don't know, finished American single malts, like other kind of off-the-wall things that carry similar proof points and finishing and stuff like that. I mean, this is 13 years old. Put this up against some of those things, and this is gonna shock you. This is a really, really cool whiskey. It's not like, I'm not in love with it, but it is absolutely something I would wanna have on my shelf as a mood pourer. And I think Mike, I think this is like a perfect whiskey for a blind pour. This is something that's gonna throw people off. And listen, I know I missed the proof by like 11.5, but, and I missed the age by 5-ish years. Even still, I think a lot of the things I mentioned about it, the finish component, it being port-like with Armagnac as far as the flavor notes go, and the use of used oak, or maybe non-charred oak, whatever the case may be. I feel really good about those guesses. And so you kind of got to see in this video a little deeper dive into some of my thought process and blind tasting and trying to figure something out that's really off the wall like this. And even though I didn't nail it, I do feel good about it, and I think this is a really cool whiskey. So shout out to Copper and Cask for putting this together. That's gonna do it, guys, but here's the deal. I think in the last video I forgot to do this. The whole 12 drams, everything for each day. So day 7, yesterday's video, or maybe it was earlier today if I'm dropping 2 in a day at this point, who knows. Day 7 should have been 7 size from Sarah. And I think I didn't say that in the video. So today, for the 8th dram of Christmas, Mike C gave to me 8 horsey toppers, 7 size from Sarah, 6 backup bottles, 5 minutes late. We gotta do that one, right? 4 barrels chosen, 3-hour live streams, 2 laser codes, and a short guy in a black tee, plus a really badass Copper and Cask 13-year Armagnac finished Kentucky whiskey at 131.6 proof. Cheers. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys for the next dram of Christmas here on Drums and Drams.